Welcome to Speak Out, Stand Out by Green Communications, where we're learning how to help our kids become better communicators. We believe our voices are the strongest asset we have, and our mission is to empower the next generation to use their voices to make a difference in the world around them. Whether you are a parent, an educator, or are just invested in today's youth, we hope this podcast will help you build confidence in our future, one voice at a time. Welcome back to Speak Out, Stand Out. I'm Elizabeth Green, and today's guest is Kimberly Grustas. Kimberly started Good For You Girls to keep girls away from toxic chemicals during puberty. She's been called the OG of tween skincare, and it's not hard to see why. Good For You Girls was was the first line of clean skincare dedicated to girls in the United States. Kim is also known as a thought leader in helping moms connect to their daughters during these precious and challenging years, I must say. Kim, we're so excited to have you here. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you created a clean line of skincare. And was that your background? Did you go to school for esthetician stuff? How did you get to this stage?
Yeah, so I'm actually a creative director by trade, but I was a fitness nut in the day. And I worked for nutrition companies. So I worked with sport nutrition companies, protein powders, amino acids, ingestibles. So I was very well educated in, how the body functions and the things the nutrition support that we need as athletes. So that's really where my background came from. When I left the nutrition industry, I started my own advertising agency. And it was just at the beginning, it was in 2000, and it was just in the beginning of the really natural products boom, like when the natural products really started taking off. And I loved them, because I was, a fitness nut. And I was all about clean. So I was fascinated by the technology, and I was also fascinated by the brands and the passion behind it. So when I started my agency in 2000, 4 months later, I was pregnant with my first daughter. So great timing, right?
Right.
So,
funny how that happens.
Yeah. So she was born with severe asthma and allergies. So we were running to the emergency room for breathing treatments, EpiPens. She had a very, a condition with her airways would get triggered by scents or any slight virus, and she would literally stop breathing. So it was a rather scary thing. So when your kids are sick, as a mom, you'll do anything to figure out what their triggers are and how to help them. And that her triggers were anything respiratory. So no scents, no candles, no fragrances. That's in any perfumes and candles and laundry detergent. Anything like that had to be completely eliminated from her world. So that really, I was good on research because of what I did. So I really went down a rabbit hole of ingredients and really understanding how toxic a lot of the ingredients and the products in our environment are. So we figured her out. She also had some food allergies. And then 2 years later, my second daughter was born. She had also had some asthma, but she had a skin condition. She had a hive disorder and she had eczema. So now I'm a mom who's doing everything right. So why are my kids right? So then that was another rabbit hole, right, about your skin, because my first daughter was all respiratory. And then so now we've got skin issues. So I just really dove into as much knowledge as I could. And then fast forward to 2008 is when everything started. Is my older daughter saw a bath set from Hannah Montana in Target. And I remember they loved Hannah Montana.
Oh yeah.
And so, I controlled everything that went in and on their bodies. They're 6 and 8 at this point. And she made a beeline to this bath set. And she says, Mommy, can we buy this? And I flipped it over, and lo and behold, it was made in China. It had every dye, every 5 lines of just dyes, chemicals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was such a wake-up call, because I'm like, is this what brands are slathering on our children? Right? It really scared me. So I was like, well, okay, I'm living in a bubble here. But not only is this what brands are putting on our children, it's that she's 8. and she wants it. So that also, and I was, again, I was clean, but I was never like the earthy, crunchy kind of Birkenstock, natural mom. I was just the process of elimination. I was a very simple mom, less is more kind of philosophy. And so it really got me thinking, and she went into early puberty. So it really got me thinking about, again, these chemicals on our daughters that are going through adolescence. And lo and behold, the environmental working group came out a study that year, and they tested the blood and the urine of young girls and found toxic chemicals linked to personal care products in their blood and their urine. And the average girl is actually exposed to more chemicals than the average woman.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really, it's now the thing about their bodies during puberty is it's a cascade. So the puberty starts in the hypothalamus and goes to the pituitary gland. Most people, when we talk puberty, they think, oh, it's the reproductive organs. It's not. It's the blood, it's the bones, it's the brain. It's everything that deals with growth. And your adrenal glands are also part of this, this system. So hormones are not bad. Hormones are amazing. And I want to change the language to be able to help, change the language around hormones. But when you introduce your body to a protein, to a fat, to a carbohydrate, your body knows what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So now you start introducing something foreign, whether it's a dye, whether it's a synthetic, as a synthetic fragrance, or if it's a preservative, a synthetic preservative. The closest chemical compound that your body thinks it is estrogen. So that's why we refer to these chemicals as estrogenic chemicals. And we now know that girls are entering puberty much earlier, right? And breast development used to happen with puberty, but now breast development is happening almost 2 years earlier. So what's happening is they're getting these false signals of estrogen based on what they're eating internally and what they're getting exposed to externally. So the body is saying, okay, we're ready, right? They're getting these signals. Now, boys are not immune, because what you'll see in boys in middle school, and when boys are in middle school, they'll develop breast buds. And that's before their natural testosterone kicks in a little bit later and negates the estrogen. So both boys and girls at this very tender age are actually having responses to extra estrogen.
Wow. And so you saw this, right? You saw, I don't want to put all these things on my daughter. And that led you down the path of creating a product line without any of the junk in it, right?
Well, it's permission based. Girls want something they need. Again, their lower sebum production starts at 9, right? So I developed the line to really honor this rite of passage, because you don't want to say no. Right? You want to say yes. You just want to say yes to the right stuff. I believe there's a psychological component to girls' needs in personal care and to take care of themselves. And I think we need to honor that and really encourage that, because that's the foundation. So wonderful. And if they're showing interest in personal care and taking care of themselves, we want to be able to, support them with the right products.
Right. And it seems like, especially today, I know with social media and the TV and all the things the kids are exposed to today, that interest is starting so much earlier than it did. I'm sure whenever I was a teenager, besides, I wanted to wear makeup. That was it. I didn't care about washing my face or anything like that. And now we have very young girls that are wanting to buy these products that they're seeing influencers share and all of that. And like you said, we don't want to be like, no, that's bad, because we do want them to learn how to take care of their skin and their bodies. But are we doing more harm than good when we're letting them use these things?
Yeah, no, we are. I mean, honestly, if it's the wrong product. So here's why, right? So taking care of your skin, your body, deodorant, all of that stuff is really, really good. But there's certain chemicals we know that are not good for anyone. Right? So adults or children. Those are things, again, like parabens, phthalates, propylene PEGs, polyethylene glycol, anything with alcohol, and I know the consumers now are really versed on the pH of your skin or the natural microbiome, right? Your skin is the largest organ. And so it's there. It has a very important purpose, and that's to protect in your body, right? That is your first line of defense for things getting into your body. Now, again, exposure to these chemicals because they're building up in your system, but also with young people, their skin, I mean, it's crazy, again, these influencers, because their skin is the goal, right? I mean, you look at anti-aging, you look at women, like, we want their skin. Give me a pimple. Give me a couple pimples. I'll take all the pimples in the world. Give me their lesser douchey skin, right? So and their skin is not meant to exfoliate as fast. We do not want cellular turnover at their age. They are supposed to have supple, oily skin. The sebum production is there for a reason, again, to protect during growth. So what's happening is if they're stripping, drying, or irritating their skin and exfoliating it too fast, they're also exposing their skin to serious UV damage, and we know that they're not protecting their skin from the sun, right? So so any of these acids, beta hydroxy or alpha hydroxy acids and things like that really leave them for damage that they're not even going to see until their late 20s. Right? That's why it's critical that we say, hey, let's stop. Why do you want skincare? Right? Let's address the why. And children are dealing with mostly bacterial acne. Right? So they're in school all day, they're doing sports, they don't have access to water, they're not washing their face, they're leaning on their hands in school. Right? It's not common that an 11-year-old or 12-year-old is dealing with some serious hormonal cystic acne. That doesn't mean that doesn't happen, right? But for the most part, we're talking bacteria. So if we're getting rid of the dirt and the grime and addressing the bacteria without damaging the skin, we're setting up that microbiome to really protect them. So we're giving everything that they need without going overboard. And, I am very much on the less is more. Our product line is, 3 facial care items, plus toner pads for on the go, but it's cleanser, toner, moisturizer, because we don't believe that girls need more than that. Gotcha. Yes, they need sunscreen. That's another thing. We do not do sunscreen for a couple reasons, and that's because we know girls don't apply it. They don't reapply, right? We don't like chemical sunscreens. We like, mineral-based sunscreens, obviously, and that's a fight. That's a fight that parents are going to, have to have with their kids. But yeah, the dangers, unfortunately, it's not just the dryness and irritation or the dermatitis that some of these, chemical-laden products might, give them. It's also the damage we can't see right now that they're doing for later damage.
And and that obviously is something we want to make sure that we're aware of and helping them prevent, because that doesn't seem important to most of us right now. We want what we want right now. It's hard to look ahead and think about that. Well, so we've talked about the science side of things. Let's talk about how do we have these conversations with our kids. And you mentioned earlier, puberty is starting earlier and earlier with girls and boys. And this is a conversation that it's like the birds and the bees conversation. Like, we don't really want to have this conversation, but we do. How do we know when we should start addressing this? And how do we do that? How do we normalize this conversation with our kids?
And I envy moms who have young children, because it's so great. I wish, you know what I mean? So when there's growth spurts, so when you're writing, the line on the door, right? Every birthday, you're writing the line on the door. You see a growth spurt. There's certain things that will happen with early puberty. So there might be aches and pains, meaning their bones are growing. So they'll have leg cramps. There's going to be a disruption at night. Their sleep patterns are going to change. That's the melatonin shift in their bodies. Attachment issues, friends, that's a big one. So there's all of a sudden girls, they bounce around, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, it's a very serious thing. Eat, sleep, breathe, friends, eat, sleep, breathe, friends, right? And they might have sort of attachment issues. Well, that's the cortisol that's coming, and we call it the cuddle chemical. So it's an attachment hormone. And that's, again, something that's going on in their brain. It might be a little bit of a stress, right? There might be stressor, a little bit of obsessive kind of behaviors. These are all signs of puberty. Right. And not just the obvious signs, whether it's body odor or pubic hair or things like that. It can be emotional and behavioral. And I really get angry when I hear people talk about puberty. Suck it up and get over it. Puberty is an amazing thing. And I believe that if girls and boys understood truly the remarkable things that their body is doing, that they will respect it. And it's good for parents to also be reminded about truly what's happening. I mean, their blood pressure is changing. The myelin sheath in their brain is, all of the synapses are coming faster. They're having these outer body experiences. We see them as flights and behavioral issues, but it's an out of control. I had a very severe, when I was young, like outer body experiences. So I remember that really, really well. So there's all of these things. So empathy as a parent, I think, is the first thing that we have to realize. So when they start wanting to close the bathroom door, right, when we have those growth spurts, it's now time to talk about hormones in a positive way. Like, hormones are remarkable, right? And so as women, we're going to be dealing with hormones our entire life. Right? All the way through menopause, hormones, right? So let's get comfortable with them. They're great. They're fascinating. They do some remarkable things. And so I believe, again, when girls feel proud of what their bodies are doing, are capable, those are really easy conversations about growth. And then we can talk about hormones as it relates. Then the conversations are much easier when we talk about hormones as it relates to the reproductive system. So we're just naturally flowing. And, young children is, 6, 7, growth. Oh my gosh, your hormones and all that stuff, and your brain and your body and your blood and all of that. We can really start having those conversations lightly.
But how do we, especially for you, right? This is you live and breathe this stuff, right? So
yeah.
you know the science behind it, and you can talk about all these beautiful things that are happening. Whereas for those of us who aren't as familiar, just know the very basics. You're going to get taller. You're going to start your period, things like that. Again, like what should we talk about with our kids? What is age appropriate for them? How are we going to have this conversation so that they even care?
Well, no, I think, again, there's reality, and it is keeping it age appropriate, right? It is keeping it age appropriate, and it's always checking in. How are you feeling? How are your bones? How are you, any smelly? Like, it's natural. It's like, are you noticing any body odor? And then bathing is a big deal, right? To teach them to bathe while they're still in your care. And, running in, you have boys, so you probably know the boys just like stand under the water and they don't even the pool in the summer is their shower, right?
Right. We still have conversations about scrubbing your hair. You have to scrub it.
And so it's, bar soap's not going to cut it. You need to scrub, face cloth. I don't believe in soap because it's just more glycerin and it just runs off. Again, when you're using a face cloth gently, you're actually getting rid of the dead skin. You're rubbing under your armpits in your privates, and it's really getting rid of the bacteria. And it's also, for girls, super important for them to, with a face cloth top to bottom, it's moving their lymphatic system. So when you're scrubbing under your armpits before you have breasts, because girls actually will start avoiding their breasts when they start growing in the shower. And you really need them to start rubbing, their armpits, because it is the whole drainage, the lymphatic system. And it's really just a great way to start, talking about, the systems of the body without it being scary, right? So I think it's just the gentle conversation, and the data is there. If you want to get really deep into the weeds and you want to talk specific hormones, then knock yourself out. You know what I mean? One of the things that I'm actually concerned about, like for parents, if they watch body odor really early, or they watch pubic hair really, really early, that might be a sign of the adrenal glands. And one of my concerns, I'm waiting for some studies to come through to see some studies, is kids are really stressed out. More than ever, right?
Yeah.
And so we know as adults how important the adrenal glands are. So if we've got stressed out kids, that might be putting extra stress on their adrenal glands that might cause issues later down the line. So it's really just being aware, I think, of how they're growing, if things look normal. And if they don't look normal, feel normal, and you're not having those little conversations, you won't be able to identify. And if there is an issue, it might be too late for you to identify it. Yeah. And so, right. And because there's that specific window. And I think, I don't know if bone growth, if you're familiar with, if estrogen happens too much within that growth cycle, it actually shuts down the actual bone, the growth quicker. So somebody who may be more expected to be taller will actually be shorter. It actually shuts. Yeah. There's growth there's that window. And so too much of any particular, estrogen actually will shut down the growth process. So these are things that you as a parent, again, when babies, we research, right? We know, we read, and we're prepared. And then all of a sudden, and this is the second largest growth since infancy. And, and so one of the other fascinating things, again, about bone growth and nutrition, and it's all wrapped into this. So during puberty, the bone growth in girls during puberty, what they are gaining is the actual same amount that women will lose in menopause. It's fascinating. So we want to make sure that we're doing things to support that bone growth, because that's that window, right? That's a very important window for their future health.
We just look at it as they're getting taller. Look, oh my goodness,
it's
my
a Jack
baby.
and the Beanstalk thing, right? It's like,
yes.
Oh, it's magic, it happens. But I think when you really get it, and we can look at our own history. We talked about, we mentioned influencers. I want to give parents permission to be their child's influencer. You are. Don't lose that role, right? And that comes with knowledge, and knowledge is cool. And you might, they might say, hey, Mom, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Those are those things I want to encourage parents, and just to have that open communication. And dads as well. I did a podcast with a dad, and he's like, how do I talk to my daughter about puberty? I'm like, right. You do. And words matter. Right. And we just be very gentle in that conversation. And again, patience is critical, when they get to that. And I think that so many people think, okay, well, they get cranky, I'm just going to let them go. Right. They sort of give up. And when those emotions surge, that's actually the time where you need to hold on a little tighter, because that is telling you that they're feeling out of control. So those things, I had a very different, my older daughter, she was great. Didn't have emotional surges. My younger daughter, she was a beast. She would get in those, and we came up with a safe word. I would say, "Are you in a pickle?" Because her words, she just didn't know what to do with it. She would spiral, and I didn't want to react because what she was saying was insulting or mean or whatever. So we came up with a safe word and said, "Pickle," and we would walk, and I knew exactly what it meant. Or she would say pickle. Like she couldn't even articulate what she was feeling, the emotion she was having. And she knew that I was her safe place. And that's the other thing is, we forget that the more a child will lash out to you, except during puberty, we're talking older, we're not talking 8-year-olds or whatever, the more they feel safe. I know it feels counterintuitive, right? But that's why they're yours, because they know you're not going to go away. And that's a really good thing. As much as it hurts, but remember, we're the big people. We can handle it, right? We can handle it. It's okay. Right. And it's hot in the moment, but it will even out.
I am so glad you brought that up. I was actually just having this conversation with my own mom the other day about my oldest son is 15, and he's like your younger daughter, right? Like just very expressive, doesn't quite know how to handle his emotions. And I was saying, I have that superpower of mom. I can make my son mad just by saying good morning, and she was saying, but you're his safe person. You're his safe place. And that's why. And it is so important for us to hear that and remember it, because Absolutely. They can be very hurtful. And it is very easy for us just to react, instead Absolutely. Of thoughtfully responding and remembering that.
And the best thing to do in that time is quiet, because then they're in their head. And kids today don't get that. We've sort of robbed that process, for them to go inward and to reflect. Right. And so that's why, I don't like the word timeout, because that's punishment. Right. Time out when they're little, take time out, every take a time out. So that's why there's, other communications which are good, meaning we're giving them the ability to control it. We're putting the power into their hands. You know what I mean? And we can take it and say, you know what, I'm going to walk away and you're good, and go hang out in your room for a little while. We'll regroup, in 15, 20 minutes or half an hour. You come to me when you're ready to talk, and you just reflect. And so, it is. And it goes, it's so fleeting. And that's why sometimes it seems like it's so daunting. It's never going to end, but it will. Right. And that's why we need to do the right things during that. Puberty has trauma. And I think we will ask any woman, she remembers, right? Puberty has trauma. And those things will make a difference on how we we react. And again, if you're reminded exactly how amazing and what their bodies are going through, I think empathy is our friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so to kind of wrap things up here, what age would you say, like we talked about at the beginning, I'm kind of circling back to that, but we talked about young girls, younger than ever, are more and more interested in skincare. With yours specifically, what age do you recommend that we either start suggesting that our kids use it if they're not asking for it, or if they're asking for it, is there a stage where, no, you're too young, you don't need that yet? What age do we look at?
Body care is important. So you're going to find, like, if you use a nice child's product, they're going to start wanting to work away from that because it's too kiddish. Right. So body products are good. A nice body wash. Lotion is key, again, to keep your body. They sweat a lot. So there's a lot of skin dehydration they don't realize in children. We slather our babies, but we forget to slather them. And so if your kid is itchy or having some redness, again, so a nice body wash, a nice body lotion. We have a roll-on deodorant, which actually uses probiotic technology. So it kills the bacteria that causes the odor. And that's also an important thing, it's not you that's stinking, it's the bacteria that's stinking, right? For them to understand that's not, the odor's not coming from you, it's coming from the bacteria. And even small children will understand that. So there's never, 7-year-olds, 8, deodorant, perfectly fine for a natural aluminum-free deodorant. Don't go, and then again, like I said, sebum production starts at age 9. And so if their skin is starting to get a little oily, things like that, you can introduce a facial care regimen. And if a girl really is starting makeup, see makeup start around really 12 or 13. My advice to parents is do not let them use makeup until they've got 6 months of a skincare routine under their belt. Do not introduce makeup and a skincare routine. Because again, when they're wanting to use makeup, we have to understand why. Like, what is it you're trying to achieve? Why do you want it? Sometimes it's being left out, that kind of thing. Yeah. But if you're now introducing makeup, which most likely they're not using a really quality, right? It's an inexpensive kind. They're just introducing bacteria. So give them a good skin regimen at night so that they can wash their face and be hydrated. And if they're okay, comfortable doing that for about 6 months, 3 to 6 months, depending on their age, then you can feel confident that they can start and do makeup the right way, that they already know how to wash it off and take care. And the other nice thing is, if they start a skincare routine before the makeup, they might not want the makeup because their skin, right, the issues that they think they're going to be covering up with makeup or that makeup's going to do, they won't have, right? You're going to be eliminating some of that issue.
Right.
So that's also kind of a little secret weapon there too.
Well, and I love it because I feel like makeup is one of those things. I don't have girls, right? But if I was going down that path, I would look at it as, are you mature enough to use this? And if you can show me that you're mature enough to follow the skincare routine, then you're mature enough for that too. I love it. It's kind of like earning it, showing I am ready for this instead of, just.
And I'm going to jump in. You didn't ask me, but I'm going to give your listeners one more little piece of advice because I think this is super important. When your kids are tweens, or, young teens, now is your time to also look at you and what are you doing for self-care, right? Because they're not going to, they're okay to be left alone and whatever. And, we as moms always fall at the bottom of the barrel. And don't forget that your kids are watching you. And especially during these years. So they're going to watch how you're taking care of yourself. So I always encourage my moms, get involved, right? Wash your face with her. Start, if you have neglected your own self-care, start now, right? Use that as a reminder that, read the labels, watch chemicals, clean out your closet, do it with her, pick some new stuff, and then do that journey together. And it's a really wonderful bonding experience.
I love it. Well, Kim, this has been a great conversation. Very enlightening. I learned a lot more than I really expected to going into this conversation. So, well, we are super glad to have you here. And tell us, of course, we'll link to everything in the show notes, but just tell us a little bit more about where we can find you and what we can get.
So it's simple. It's goodforyougirls.com, all spelled out. And then there's the link on the bottom is info@. If you want to reach out, those will come to me. So if you have questions about any situation that you're dealing with or want any specific answers, please feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. And again, you'll be able to find those links right in the show notes. So go check it out. Good for you, girls. And Kim, again, appreciate your time, your expertise. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
If you are looking for more ways to build communication skills in your kids, grab our free mini lesson on how to craft a polished and professional speech out of thin air, along with 52 fun prompts so your kids can practice every single week. You can find that along with info about our upcoming public speaking and debate courses for kids at greencommunicationsedu.com.